Welcome, everyone, to Day 3 of the Paladins World Championship Qualifiers. My name is Gormizer, and we've already had a pretty interesting week. Yesterday, it was lose and go home. We saw a few console teams get eliminated, I think the most prominent of which was your Console Wars champions. The Hype Unit console team got eliminated, and surprisingly enough, Flashpoint are the ones who stayed alive coming into today. Today is going to be a win, and you move on. If you win today, you go to quarterfinals, then tomorrow will determine seeding. So a lot of these teams are, well, looking for their wins, trying to stay afloat and not go home if you're in the last two matches. And joining me for this first one, which is going to be Spacestation Gaming versus Renegades, very fittingly, I have Kresnik next to me. It's just like a PPL day.
Yeah, and this is also the most biased game I could possibly be on.
Exactly. We have to put you on the desk so we can limit the time that you're biased.
Yeah, you can also put me off, but
that's
totally fine. Still, this is going to be a great day in general. Every single game. Once this day's over, we have the 8 teams at Worlds. That's it. It is completely determined by the time it's over, so every single game has an impact. First two are winners bracket side, so the teams that lose in these first two games are not going to be eliminated, but the final two are win and you're in, lose and you're out.
And that's, I think, the biggest thing. We still have 6 teams left. SSG, Renegades, Knights, Kanga. Both all need 2 losses in order to get fully eliminated. But if you win, you make it to that semifinals column, you are going to the quarterfinals. Everything after that is seeding and how it's going to go. Of course, Renegades had a little bit of a rough path getting here. All Business gave them some trouble. SSG, a team that they've played a lot in the past, maybe a little different there. And that's the interesting. The first 2 matches that we're going to watch today are the first 2 furthest on this bracket on your screen now. And it's a PPL day. We got Spacestation, Renegades, Knights, Kanga. The biggest difference being regular season, best of 7s. Here and now, best of 5s. The loser of those 2 matches will drop down. One will play the minor league Hype Unit. The other will play Flashpoint, who was able to eliminate All Business yesterday. And the winners of those last 2 matches move on. The losers, as you said, go home.
And that's a lot of pressure. We're going to see what teams can really handle that the best.
Yeah.
It's not a situation they've played in before, right? Even the PPL teams, they've played through the whole season, but you lose a game in the season, you go back to your hotel, you go back to your team house, you figure it out, you talk about it. Here, you lose, and you twiddle your thumbs for the next couple of months until, you know what you want to do next.
There's a world we live in where there's potentially only 2 PPL teams that make it into the quarterfinals from this bracket. Of course, there's already 4 sitting there, so that'd be 6 total. Still pretty good, I guess, as a batting average since there's 8 teams. But either way, it's looking good for them. But Space Station and Renegades is the first one coming up. And Space Station Gaming, they, haven't had much to do this week, really. They came in, they won 3-0, and they've been preparing ever since. For a team that they played 4 times through the regular season, they're playing up against the Renegades, and they've actually had closer calls with Renegades than I think many of the teams in the Premier League. I mean, even Navi and NIP, if I throw them in there. The first one, the one that I remember the most, that's burned into my memory, I'm sure yours as well, the 7-game set, everything's going so well. Renegades are 1 fight away from winning, and it was actually, I think, Sadak stayed alive in that. Aries, though, has kind of grown into his own as these phases have gone on. This entire year has been pretty good for him.
Yeah, especially since this entire phase specifically, I think, has been Aries' comeback,
it's his training arc.
Because people, for sure, this is his moment, I think, to grow as a player as time has gone on. And this phase, they started rough. I mean, they had an early loss this phase to Renegades right when they showed up. So having that on the board, they have a 1-1 record with them in phase 2. Yeah, the second time they met up was definitely a little bit Space Station dominant for sure. And I think that has to do with Aries and how much he's improved as a player as the phase has gone on. People were kind of marking him as the downfall of the team, right? They were looking at Aries and they were like, oh, wow, replace Aries, blah, blah. But he's been a rock for this team, and now he's also proving himself as a dominant backline.
And it's really weird because he doesn't bring... If you look at Rock Monkey, you look at Ricotta, like you look at Invocal, like you look at the pool of champions most DPS and backline damage players are bringing... You've got your Leons, your Snipers, your Cassies, and they will sometimes, like Victor will come out, maybe they'll play a Vivian, but like they go to the hyper carries where it's like, even if we're losing, my slash line's going to be ridiculous. Aries is more of a facilitator. Like, he's not the guy who's getting all the kills, and sometimes it looks maybe worse because of it, but he'll play the Tyras, the Vivians, I'm just going to sit here and set up Freeze God because that's what the team is kind of oriented around. And that's going to be an interesting dynamic because you can't really look Aries versus now with Renegades. In Vocal, you have to kind of look at it as Aries versus the team.
Yeah, and how much he can do to enable everybody else, how much aggression he can draw, and how careful he can be, because I know that used to be a problem with him where he would maybe push a little bit too far past a choke point. And if anyone's going to punish him, it would be the DPSs on Renegades.
Oh, yes.
And the rest of the team in general, too, obviously. But in Vocal Shadow specifically, having to duel them is going to be very tough. But the rest of the team are no slouches either. Renegades, again, this roster that has been so good on paper potentially, but has just never really realized that potential.
And honestly, a lot of this roster, we talk about not realizing their potential. I think Moonchopper falls pretty much right under that category almost immediately. Went from DPS to now off-tank for this team. Had a really, really, really rough adjustment period getting into this role, but has kind of come into his own. Granted, I think his champion pool, when you look at Sadak, you look at Moonchopper, vastly different amounts of what they can bring out and play successfully here. And it's going to be interesting to see. Khan's very important for them. Ashe is very important for them. Those are probably the most prominent picks he has.
Those are definitely the picks he performs the best on. The only issue is that he's very inconsistent on some of them, too. He's just unable. Sometimes on Khan, he has good games, but then he doesn't hit a single Khan ult all game.
Yeah.
And that really is why you're picking Khan. Missing that can really hurt you in the long run. Renegades now, I think, realizing how much Moon does on Khan versus these other off-tank champions, they tend to pick it really early, and I feel like that could also punish them in the draft as well if you know, like, oh, they're going to take Khan. So
it's also, I think, worth noting for him specifically, and really for all of Renegades, they were having some issues dealing with all business.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, when they were playing, was on the back of Toot Toot causing trouble for Moonchopper, like that off-tank matchup. And giving more credit, I think, to Sadak as someone who has been and I think still is a world-class off-tank.
Yeah.
You got to be really worried about where that's going to go. Luckily, you have a lot of rapport with these two teams. You do have to have that issue, that pressure of it's best of 5, so the most you can hope for is to go down 2 games, and otherwise you're done. I also think it's really interesting that Moonchopper is probably one of the only players I can say this for as a stat. Around 83,000 average damage, just around 83,000 average shielding as well. And for a tank, that's pretty solid. He's just right in the middle for both.
That's a good amount of damage for an off-tank, for sure. And someone who doesn't even really play that much Ruckus, and when he does, they kind of play it like this hyper-aggressive int, I don't give a damn about my slash lines, I'm just going to feed and hope my team can carry. And sometimes that's what Renegades needs, enabling the rest of their star players.
And at the end of the day, if you can set Invocal up, I don't think anyone's going to say, oh man, that's a bad idea. That. We'll have to see where they want to go. First, we're going to see where they can't. Frog Isle, Shattered Desert. I'm going to get on to somebody about this Frog Isle thing. Ice Mines, Warder's Gate. I just miss the map at this point. I mean, a lot of those make sense, and I understand it's super snowbally, especially in a best of 5. You do not want to say, hey, we're already down a map 6 minutes into the set. But, I like it. It's pretty. Either way, who cares? Jag Falls is where we're going. And this one, I would say adversely, or maybe even in common with Frog Isle, depending on how you want to look at it. A lot of things can be run here that you might not run normally.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the SSG might be trying to call back to that Game 7 set. Maybe bring back some bad memories for Renegades to try to flip the mental game on their side.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that was a rough game to be in the coach booth for. I
genuinely don't know who was more devastated in that. Renegades or Dave? Dave was distraught after that set. He was rooting for the Renegades. And, obviously we have, some unbiased, but, when they lose, sometimes they look like very sad puppies. They looked like extraordinarily sad puppies that day because they were so close to winning.
Yeah, I don't think I talked about this on desk before, but Powtek was very mad.
Yeah, I can
he
imagine.
Actually slammed the chair into the booth and stormed out when I was sitting next to him, and I didn't even go for the handshake because I was scared. I talked to our video editor. I'm like, dude, kill time for me, please, before I walk over there. But these bans are in Makoa, Atlas, Khan, and Strix from SSG. Strix ban on Jaguar Falls. That just goes to show how impactful of a DPS champion he is. Willow going to be the first pick, and Willow's really solid on this map, kind of filling in that pip position that a lot of teams play. You put her on that bridge over the choke points. She can get away pretty easily over those walls and spam around corners and not really let you push out of those really tight choke points that are everywhere on Jaguar Falls.
Now, Freeze God is a phenomenal blaster, and I don't think there's any other way to word it. When it comes to playing blasters in this game, he is one of the best, easily top 3, and could be argued to top 2 to top 1, right? Willow, in my mind, is his weakest champion, but is that something that maybe was lack of practice during the regular season, and now you think maybe he's come into his own? Or is this going to be something that Renegades could maybe kind of abuse and tolerate more than something like his bomb king?
I think it's a champion that has improved on him a lot over time. I mean, just look at that Flashpoint set. Even in that close game, I think he went like 27-7 or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Had a fantastic game there.
Yeah.
And it really
Average
was just
game.
trying to get used to it, right? They really didn't play very much in that break they had during the season. It's just really tough to down in Brazil. So once it came back, playing a champion that, yeah, he's played Willow before, but this is a very different Willow than we're used to seeing in the past. It's a different champion. He really had to relearn it. It was almost like a brand new one. I think he's come into his own since then. Ashe and Genos on the other side for Renegades. Decent start for them. It's aggressive, but I think that's what they want.
Oh, yeah.
On this map, though, they tend to stack as 5, and I don't know if having Genos unable to spread heals around is what they really want. I don't know if it's going to be enough to keep them alive if they are stacking around, especially against Freeze God's Willow.
Yeah, I mean, you get the Willow already. So Inara already struggles with a Genos as a support. Now you have the Willow on the other side with that. I think it's the double-edged blade. I love picking up the Barrack here just to scoop that away from Renegades. And also, I'm just going to, like, even, you know what? All 5 of these. Willow, Maeve, Barrack personifies the 3 members of SSG up to Richao, Ares, and Freeze God.
Yeah.
If they lock in this Ruckus and Io, I think Mitau has really taken to her. The only thing that I would say is more iconic, arguably, would be his Maldamba.
For sure.
But I think this is one of those, like, run it down the line. SSG are in the draft they want to. Renegades, a little shakier just because of that Inara. But they get the Cassie. They have a little bit of a flex pick here for either Shadow or Invocal, which is perfect, I think, to be in for this last pick slot.
Yeah, and I don't honestly know what they're going to end up with here. I think Pip could be a good option, just some healing to supplement what you could be lacking by having just a Genos. Alternatively, even Drogos might be okay here. They really don't have a way to deal with you outside of maybe Ares going and having some air-to-air combat with that Maeve. That's really the only thing they have to deal with it, so a couple options open for Renegades, I'm assuming, for Shadow at this point. And I think that can be said about Renegades' draft, too. I mean, Ashe and Nara, pretty standard tank line for Renegades. Genos for Viral. Xin would be a very interesting pick. That, to me, says they want to dive this IO. But I don't know if the rest of the team is going to be willing to. That's probably going to be a 2-2 split. Inara, Cassie controlling mid, Ashe Xin doing whatever they want. But the Cassie and the Inara might not be able to follow up, really, on the pressure that they do, especially if this Barrack is just locking down that choke point with Willow backup.
So, in a list of alternatives, you had mentioned Drogos, Bomb King comes to mind on this map.
Yeah.
Is Xin, I don't want to say high priority because he's 10th pick here, but is he going to be able to accomplish what he wants in this, or is he going to get shut down pretty hard by the Willow?
He'll do all right. There's actually an interaction I'm curious about. If Xin gets stunned through counter by Luna, that will make things a lot harder, and I genuinely don't know if he does. If he does, this is going to be really tough for that Xin.
Well, that'll be interesting to find out. I hope Renegades know what's going to happen with that one coming into this one, but everybody getting something that they feel comfortable with. Xin coming out for the first game of the day. Let's go down to the casters, see what they think about all this.
Thank you very much, Gormizer. Simple in these 4 matches today, Bees. Win and you're in, and I guess in our last 2 matches of the day, lose and you go home. SSG, they've drafted Comfort, a little bit of spiciness there, adding in the IO, Ruckus for Sadak as well. What do you think about that Xin pick for the Renegades? That was the topic on the desk. Where does he fall in your mind?
The Zin's going to be kind of interesting. They said the interaction with Luna is going to be one of the ones that is going to be fun to see. I'm actually curious as well whether it will go through the stun. But what I think Zin is going to allow them to do is put a lot of damage straight down through the middle. And even if they're using Luna to cap the point and aggressive with the tanks, that Yomi strike is going to be able to go through all the characters and potentially get a lot of damage off.
I know the Renegades are feeling confident. We've seen on Twitter feeling good about their matchup today. Top seed in SSG, and then technically the bottom PPL seed in the Renegades. They beat All Business 3-2, excuse me, in the first matchup of the week. Ares piloting this Maeve around the backside near statue, and Vocal already poked out very low. Going toe-to-toe with Richao, has to dodge roll himself out. SSG, look at that. They just drop Luna on the point, 36% and climbing now for them. They're controlling this mid space very well. First couple of kills now starting to come out. Freeze God and Shadow doing that much. Richao is forced to rocket boots out. Just a little bit of poke here back and forth, Beast.
Yeah, we see the Renegades getting poked out really early here. It's given the Space Station team a lot of advantage on the point. They've done a fantastic job of bringing Luna back as well, not allowing Luna to actually be destroyed, which gives her a much faster cooldown, which means they can put her back onto the point a little bit quicker as well. Just gaining those extra few advantages on the point with percentage ticking.
Sure. Already at 51, so SSG kind of rotating around that Luna as well. Sadak a little bit too far forward. Moonchopper, that's an important matchup to watch as well. Moonchopper has a big day. Renegades might be feeling confident. Double kill for the Ashe already. SSG were able to get themselves pretty high up, 84% for them, but now the Renegades, a couple of kills from their off tank, put them in control of this mid with a chance to zone.
The Ashe is actually a phenomenal pick into the Mave. Mave's notoriously kind of tricky to track through the sky, but the Ashe shots make it really easy for them to do that as well. And I think as well with the the Cassie coming onto the team, with the big game versus the Ruckus, they kind of actually do have a lot of counterplay on the side of Renegades coming into the Space Station team.
Ooh, it's a good sort of flank there from FreezeGod. Double kill, flutters in, makes it 3. And the collapse was on. They had Scout flying high and above, Renegades did, but I don't think they were prepared from the aggressive dive from FreezeGod. 5 in a row for him, 4 in that final fight, and SSG grabbed themselves the first point of the set.
Really just seemed like they weren't aware of what was happening on the map there. We see the Easy come in for the double kill from the Willow, and then the Gen Assault comes through when the Willow is right there, allowing to get the really easy tags onto her, increase the damage as Willow does with the Blast Flower. Just really simple kills coming out from Space Station.
Yeah, all you need is that quick, subtle rotation. 5-0-1 for FreezeGod. Chose the right moments to get aggressive right towards the end of that. Now you have to be careful. Renegades starting to lose a couple of their members very close back to their base here. A little bit of a stagger, and Vocal trying to make it back to base. A couple daggers from Ares probing back behind those pillars. Not many of them are going to connect, but you've got a pretty suffocating zone here if you're SSG. Not letting Renegades step foot out of their base. It's going to back off. As Shadow with that Xin is a good bit of poke as well. Moonchopper follows up on the seismic crash with the kill, but Sadak as well is getting involved. Up goes the banner, but it never comes down. And SSG, they push that one in.
From my perspective there, it looks like Renegades thought they had the point, get dropped off by the Willow, get those kills come out, they lose the point, and it seems like they kind of didn't get their foot back in the ground there to get the defense going and really just allow Space Station to push it through with a lot of simplicity there.
Yeah, they seemed kind of off-kilter once that mid-fight was over. The kind of well-timed dive there from FreezeGod, as you see in this clip, for a total of 4. They just never really got back, recollected themselves. Honestly, a lot of the Renegades' control was brought on by Moonchopper. A couple of kills early in that mid-fight put them in a good spot. They might need more out of that Ashe. You do have the Assert Dominance. It was canceled out. Maybe that's good for the Renegades here. Maybe you look for Moonchopper to control some of that space on either of the flanks.
Yeah, having the Assert Dominance in a 2-0 situation is always good. That extra prolonged time that you know that one of your strongest tanks is going to be alive is always a plus. But I do see as well that they haven't had enough time for not one of their team to get a cauterized level 2. And considering how fast they're dropping right now, with ultimates being used to no avail, this is not looking good for the Renegades right now. Yeah,
that's a great amount of Fae Flight utility there from FreezeGod. Flies high, gets the kills on a couple of the damage dealers from the Renegades. Ares flies on in. Gets the last kill on the Shadow. They've been on the point this entire time, thanks in large part due to Luna. Leave that Fox back there, and everyone else fights forward. Now SSG, after a contested first couple of points, they're pushing for the 4-0 in 5.5 minutes.
When you have the 2-0 comeback mechanic and you don't get a single tick of percentage time on the point, that's a tough thing to come back from here. So I'd like to see these boys get a little bit of a stronger defense coming out now. Just use something to hold them back for a little while. Start getting these cauterizers online, that little boost that's going to help them throughout the game. We see some ults coming out now, but I'm not even sure if these are used in the best positions because they're not even at a choke point right now, and they're still pushing it with Luna. The ult hasn't done anything.
Yeah, the Assert Dominance went down, and if nothing else, made Sadak back up just a little bit, but moved right back in once that time's out. Dome Shield being used here by Rashao, so SSG think they're in a pretty good spot to maybe get this one pushed in. Rocket Boots right back. The double tank dive now onto Moonchopper. Shoulder Bash is going to connect, but body blocked out by Rashao. He's within an inch of dying, and it follows up with some good damage. Moonchopper and Viral are both down now, and the rest of Renegades are starting to fall here. Space Station Gaming, clean sweep here at the end of this game. They're going to push it in. They're going to make it 4. And off to a 1-0 start here in our first set of the day.
I mean, 7 minutes for a push that's a fast push to come through. And if you're the first set of the day, this is something that can really kind of tilt you off your center and really kind of stop you being able to come back in any sense. 4-0s for your first match really do affect you negatively.
A lot of it maybe, do you think hinges now for the Renegades on Game 2? How they bounce back after something like that, you know, maybe shake off the rust. We're in here. Game 1 is by the wayside. Do you just, as a coach now, do you just say, all right, guys, let's forget about Game 1, regroup for Game 2?
So I'd go in there with the hype, you know. I'd be in there, I'd be shouting at them, I'd tell them what to do. But unfortunately, they haven't got a boy like Bees on their side. So I don't know what they could do in this situation. I wouldn't say their draft was bad. They played relatively well across the first point of the first point fight. And then from there, they just faltered consistently. So I'm not quite sure what they need to do. They need to get their head in the game. They need to play a little bit more.
Everyone probably could use a Bees at their back.
Oh, you can always use a Bees at your back, baby.
Yeah, it never really got there for the Renegades.
No.
They held in there for the first mid-fight, and then you kind of pointed it out. The moment that mid-fight slipped through their fingers, everything else was for SSG. SSG off to a great start with win number 1. See if they can grab win number 2 in just a minute.
I'll be honest, I don't know where exactly to begin with that one. It's just so clean and cut from Space Station Gaming, pretty much from beginning to end. Maybe a couple of snags here, some good kills coming out from the Renegades, but point control pretty much fell in one way. And, you know, Kresnik, I have to say one name, I think, when it comes down to it, and that's Freeze God. There's so much everybody else is applying. They all get champions they're really happy with, but they couldn't do anything about that Willow.
Yeah, the Willow was really dominant. Just the Fae fights were kind of unanswered. They didn't really have a way to strike back to it with the Cassie Zin. Unless, barring like a god shot from the Cassie, you know, maybe you can connect a few. We even saw them try to do a straight vertical spite, but it just wasn't enough. A big part of it, too, was just the teamwork that SSG had on top of that, too. There was a moment in the final push where Sadak hexafired next to a dome shield. Rochelle walked out of the dome to drop a barricade just to keep him alive, keep him firing, and you can tell none of them really died. They were able to keep each other alive. And Renegades just couldn't find the focus fire to burn down a kill.
5 total kills on the side. Just to put it in frame, Shadow did less than half the damage Freeze God was able to put out here. Just to give you a little bit of a showcase as to what he is bringing to the table. Mitao did not die, but 3-3-3-3 read the kills for everyone except Freeze God. This 8-1 Willow has to be the talk of this game just because of how prominent it was. And understandably, Willow can do really well. Viral looking for a through time and space in that instance. Didn't find it. Well, ultimately just found a couple of shots, free shots to the back. Really good presence, and like you said, no one could counter the Fae flights when they come about, much like you see here.
I was really curious as to who Viral was trying to hit through with through time and space, and this is so tough. I think against Willow, like, you have to play inside to get away from the Fae flights, but you can't because then you're all clumping on top of each other. There was that close spite from Shadow, and Shadow did inevitably end up winning that battle, but Freeze God had already done all the damage that he needed to. Not enough. I think sustain on the side of Renegades to live through it, and even if they had sustain, they would have just been in a dead zone the whole time, unable to keep their team topped off.
Well, right now, I think SSG are trying to run the gauntlet for least amount of games played throughout this tournament. If they can keep this going, I mean, that's their 4th game that they've played this week. And at this rate, they might be able to make it look like 6. It does depend on the maps for Renegades, as has been noted in the past. Like Ice Mines is a very good one for them.
Yeah.
I think Splitstone Quarry could go either way, although that feels like a notorious
like Stone
SSG
Keep.
map, Stone Keep as well. So a lot of things that are still open that could cause a lot of trouble. And lo and behold, you ask and you shall receive. But this is one that is dangerous, no matter who you are. Because Renegades, they've shown some prowess on this map. SSG, this was hands down their map for the longest time, though. I think there were a couple of other teams. I go back in time, G2 last year were really good at this map. No one else really took that slot until SSG did.
Yeah, and there was actually a period where EU kind of saw this map as like a joke map, I guess. I say that not in a literal sense, but some teams, they didn't really practice Timber and Ice here, maybe because, they're getting banned every set anyway. Why do we bother? Some teams like Envy always were, but then, you come back. EU apparently was treating Splitstone in that similar light, like, someone's going to ban Splitstone, so let's not play it. I mean, NIP kind of still do that, right? NIP have banned Splitstone, I think, every single set for the last year.
Yeah.
As well. So they haven't been practicing it, but both these teams are, and both these teams, I think, thrive here. As I said before, Renegades, Con, first pick, they just feel like they have to enable Moonchopper.
We'll have to see how it works out for them. Strix is probably the more interesting ban that stands out to me, just because it is that works really well on the map, works really well for Invocal, is also just really good in general, hits 3 marks, gets rid of 3 of them. But I feel like a lot of what we've seen lately has been Invocal kind of defaulting back to Cassie afterward, and since they take that away, maybe stripping a little out from underneath him.
Yeah, I mean, Invocal Leon, Invocal anything is going to be fine.
Invocal Drogo's on Splitstone Quarry for SK Gaming still is burned into my mind because he went 27-3 and his team still lost.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about that before. There was an Annihilation in a game, I think, a couple days ago, and I was like, yeah, I mean, that's just Invocal.
I can get us out
Yeah,
of here.
that's
sometimes Invocal
literally
just goes on
that's
Annihilation.
just Invocal.
It just happens sometimes, and Renegade's going double off tank, but not picking up the IO with it. So they're not going to have someone or something, in Luna's case, contesting that objective. They want to just go in and win the fight quickly, but against the sustain of a Barrack, potentially the healing of a Furia, the mobility of an Eevee, I don't know if they have what it takes to be able to catch and actually melt down a target.
It kind of feels like, also, usually, and I'm just going to throw this out there, but with Con and Ashe, usually when you pair those together, Con goes to the main tank, not the off tank, which makes me think Hero will be playing that more than Moonchopper. But you pair that together, this feels like Renegades are like, all right, Shadow, Invocal, we've been with you all season, and you've been the ones to get the thing done. We really need you to get the thing done here, now. Not bad picks for them, but I'm looking at SSG, and I'll admit, if I'm Renegades, I'm a little shaky in my boots.
I think the Leon is definitely a good pickup, though, to follow up. Going to be great against the Eevee, going to be pretty good at melting down the Furia. Furia is one of the harder healers to position with, because you need line of sight, but you don't have an intangible escape like Dompa does. Dompa can push forward, and if there's danger, he can slither away, and he'll take no damage. But Wings of Wrath doesn't give you that same protection that Slither grants you. Doesn't get you quite as far away, and you have to do a weird, look backwards from it. Maybe you don't dash into the doorway. It's a much harder ability to use. Leon Maeve do get locked in, and I think that's pretty good, but it's really going to come down to that 1v1 between FRZ and whatever of the two end up playing that Maeve, probably Shadow.
Yeah.
Shadow FRZ matching up on the side. Whoever wins that fight is going to control the rest of the battle for their team.
And I'll say, Invocal Maeve versus Freeze God Eevee, that's a matchup I want to see. Shadow Maeve versus Freeze God Eevee, I don't quite personally know if it has the same weight and kind of merits behind it. Out of these two, real fast, who do you think has the edge?
I think SSG have the better draft for sure. I think Ruckus is going to be kind of tough for them to deal with. They don't have a Cassie or a burst damage kind of champion that can melt down that Ruckus, unless Maeve goes Street Justice. But then FRZ is just going to toy with them for the rest of the game.
I was going to say, you make one trade for one thing, you trade off something else. We'll have to see what exactly is going to happen in-game. We're going to Splitstone Quarry. Let's see if Renegades can tie this one up.
And this could be the pivotal game. Remember, these are all best of 5, so it's not like you lose game 1, you lose game 2. You still have a little time to get things going. If you lose here, if you're the Renegades, you got to win 3 straight after a 4-0 start, one of the fastest games we've seen this tournament. SSG are feeling good about themselves. The desk felt very good about the SSG draft, Bees. Are you feeling pretty similar to them?
No, I agree with them. I think the one saving grace for the Renegades team is going to be the Carnops. So as we said, they don't really have something to deal with the Ruckus, But at the start of the round, if you can grab the Ruckus with the Carnot, throw him straight into the spinner, especially if you're on the losing side with combat mechanics, and then you can progressively just push through the match in that sense.
Right. Potentially very high pressure on the front lines of the Renegades here. And honestly, last game, as fast as it was kind of the outlier, where normally it's Invocal and Shadow kind of going crazy and the slash lines are all in their favor. Invocal was absolutely shut down on Jaguar Falls. Maybe a better, more comfortable matchup here for him with the Leon up on the high ground. He's going to look to poke out SSG. At least early positioning from the Renegades, aggressive. Moving back on SSG. No first blood just yet. Renegades buy some of that space for themselves. Garner a slight advantage on the point, but no kills just yet, Beast.
I'm really liking how well they're holding out SSG here. SSG actually look like they're on the back foot here.
Yeah.
Really aggressive push in from Invocal as well. Despite having used his presence and missing with a low cooldown, still pushes into the high ground to try and poke out the Cassie even more, which I'm liking the confidence I'm seeing coming out from them. I'd like to see them continue this kind of stability here. Maybe not push too aggressively. Don't push their luck. Ooh,
that
SSG pushing. Yeah.
That was close. One last little jump there, and that could have been dangerous for Shadow, or one lack of jump maybe. Finds the flank, goes right around, gets the first blood onto mid-tow. Now SSG without a healer are going to have to fight back in the old-fashioned way, but it's not looking favorable for them. 99% for Renegades. A trade out onto Moonchopper, but without any frontline healing, Renegades start off Splitstone Quarry very well, and that patience, it played off.
You have to wonder whether the aggressive playstyle that the IO lent SSG last game is kind of the reason that they were able to push so significantly last time. They don't seem to have that point pressure now, whilst simultaneously allowing the team to have pressure as well. It's another fact that the Renegades are able to hold them out a little bit and continuously cap at the same time. This is actually looking really favorable for the boys of Renegades.
Yeah, they're feeling good about how this has started out. SSG looking to get something going here, going to throw out the Inflame. As such, Renegades are going to back themselves off. Hexifier off to the side, blocked out largely by Hero Shields, but enough damage snuck through that mid-tower was able to finish off the kill. So SSG, they get those ultimates they weren't able to use on the mid-fight, use them here on the defense. They're going to really push back the Renegades as far as they can, and kind of mid-fight 2.0 here, tried to hold down this quarry area.
Yeah, it would have been really nice if Hero had been able to retreat with his team there. They've done a phenomenal job of, as soon as they hear the Inflame come out from the Furia, as most teams should, you know you're not going to win that fight anymore. The entire team has a significant damage boost. They have replenished ammunition. They have movement speed. You're not going to win that fight. You do need to recognize that and fall back a little bit. On the other side of this, though, Spacestation did use 2 ultimates for 1 kill in the fact of the Inflame and the Hexifier from Ruckus just to kill 1 tank. But it has lent them a lot of map control right now, and it's whether Renegades now can flip the switch on this, maybe find a pick, and then start gaining the advantage to push back towards pushing the cart again.
SSG, they just keep finding these little individual picks. I mean, you worded it very well. The Renegades, they got 4 ultimates online now. SSG, that Inflame will be up pretty frequently for them. But now you really have to look at the timer at the top of your screen. The Renegades, if they use anything, it likely won't be up in time for this next mid-fight. Maybe overstaying a little bit here, SSG. A couple members wrapped around back in the Renegade spawn, which means a lot of separation between team members for SSG. So Renegades able to fight back, lose a few members along the way, though. Looked like maybe a clean fight for Renegades to be able to get back to the payload, but with 20 seconds left, things looking much more difficult, especially with Moonchopper going down. All the makings of a good defense here for SSG.
Yeah, in that circumstance, it looked like Renegades had the upper hand there. They had forced some of the Space Station guys to be a little bit too far behind, while simultaneously having trapped the barrack. They got a couple picks there, but then didn't really push towards the cart. I would have liked to see them just say, do you know what, we know you're behind us, we're going to ignore you, we're going to push to the cart, and then you have to come to us. But instead, they kind of just had this semi-useless point fight, and just allowed the Space Station boys just to waste enough time that the defense was really strong from them.
Yeah, looking forward, looking backwards, but payload is the name of the game, and SSG were able to defend it, tie it up here on Splitstone Quarry. Have to see if they maybe make some of these halftime adjustments where Renegades just kind of choked out all of the pressure on the mid-fight. SSG never really got to move forward. I think slash lines maybe, you know, a little bit questionable here, not because SSG didn't have a good defense, but if you're looking at kind of these mid-fights, Space Station were able to just kind of draw that line on defense. So Sadak has a great-looking slash line. Freeze got as well. But these mid-fights, they got to make some adjustments to maybe counter out what the Renegades have brought in the last one.
Yeah, the difference we see in this game between the last one is Spacestation has everyone with level 2 red cards at this point. Level 2 Cauterizers, level 2 Wreckers. If they play this correctly now and don't get Commanders grabbed, unfortunately they have done already, then they would have had a really good opportunity to maybe stagger this out. But the remainder of Spacestation have almost said, we know we're going to get Commanders grabbed here. We're actually all going to stay back. We can see Ruckus is still on mount. They're going to wait for the Barrack to respawn and then push back in as a 5-man squad with 5 ultimates, including Inflame, as we see now. And then this could be their opportunity to retake without the Commander's grab being available now for them.
And they choose that timing just right. Freeze God on the right-hand side. 2 kills now for the Eevee. They're fine with giving up 51% if they're just going to win the fight when they choose to re-engage. And Vocal tries to slide out of the way, but Sadak says no way. And that's a big double kill for the Ruckus. Spacestation Gaming, and they're already surpassed what the Renegades were able to grab with that 1 kill. They haven't used everything yet either. Assert dominance from Moonchopper up onto the high ground, off to the side a little bit, but he drops down and now at 93%, a bit out of ordinary here for the Renegades and Space Station. They come back after an early loss and grab themselves a mid.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see the Renegades preemptively understand that all the ultimates were ready from Space Station. If you don't see the enemy team for that long, you know they're waiting for something. So once you see those respawn timers come through on the Barrack, you should be aware that the fight is about to start and maybe take better positionings that's going to give yourselves the advantage. Further to this, I would like to have seen Ashe use her dash to get closer to the point before using her ultimate. I mean, using the ultimate on your own high ground, although that may have been the only choice you had, it has no use. What can you do up there? As we've seen, you get disengaged straight off, you get burst out, and you've just used your ultimate for literally no reason.
Yeah, I mean, you had kind of free mid control there to set up a defense from the retake and weren't able to do much with it. And now SSG looking dangerous on the push as well. A few members of Renegades falling, only Enlightenment readily available for them. So you have to be careful here. A few more kills start to spiral out of control for the Renegades, and things get a lot more hairy. 2-1 advantage quickly becomes 3. That quickly leads to game over if you're not careful. And Inflame for SSG, that's going to get used. Start to push back the Renegades, and Vocal dancing around kind of that entrance to their spawn just to go in and out of damage immunity. Payload getting very close here. Somebody from Renegades has to drop down. This time it's Hero, but once that shield goes down, he's going to have a much harder time staying alive. Battle Shout is going to mitigate a little bit of that damage. Freeze God, though, playing around those cooldowns, and Sadak right there for the follow-up. The last little bit of chip damage is all they need. Shadow taken very low here, playing around those corners very well, but sometimes you just need Invocal to go big, and he's done that with a double kill. So things slowing down, but SSG still got 45 seconds.
Still a significant time left for them to push, and Space Station did a phenomenal job there. Renegades had to wait for their healer to respawn. As soon as the healer respawned, they knew they were going to push out, and that's the moment they pop the Inflame as soon as the healer respawns. And they give Renegades the choice. You either fight us when we have complete damage boost, or you allow us to push the payload in. Fair play to the Renegades here. They've kind of shown a really strong standing here to fight through that team fight and actually come out the victors. And it should lend them a fairly easier point fight now to secure the 2-2 defense.
They do have 5 ultimates, though, so might consider spending something, depending on how close this payload goes. Oftentimes it just comes down to, all right, this team got kind of a cheeky pick, and we're able to push us back. Dome Shield spent by SSG. They don't want to give up any ground down there by the payload. Ares has to dodge, roll backwards. Invocal finally gets the kill onto Midtown, so not a lot of healing left for SSG, and the perfect timing of a few of those ultimates working out. Moonchopper is going to finish off this fight with the double kill as Freeze God, the last to fall. As you put it, 2-2 now tied up for the Renegades. They do spend Enlightenment, assert dominance, and through time and space, but they get a point on the board. Yeah,
much better use of the assert dominance coming through. The only one that I would have been worried that they had to use would be the Khan. As I said, that's one of their more favorable win conditions for the point fight, is having that instant free pick at the start. And maybe if they've learnt their lesson from the last one, they allow Space Station to do the exact same thing. Let us spend the Commander's grab. We'll get 1 kill, and then if they just wait and do it correctly, get some good positions afterwards, I think they'll have a better chance of securing this for the 3-2 point fight.
SSG, they drop down the Dome Shield as well, and the Hexafire. Ice Storm and Flame. And Flame might as well be up. That thing charges so quickly, especially with Morale Boost 3.
Wow.
So they're going to have a lot of Inflames, maybe even 2 throughout this mid-fight, depending on how long it goes. But look out for that overpower, as you point out, depending on the target that they maybe deem most threatening. It's who they'll look for. I think Space Station, also as you point out, are kind of playing around that. They realize somebody is going to be the target this time.
Oh no.
It's Rochelle, but Nobody's there to follow up on the damage. Hero's a sitting duck. He gets the overpower, but everyone else from SSG turns their eyes to that con, and now the rest of the fight is continuing, and Flame used a couple members of Renegades split. You see Moonchopper way in the back of the SSG base up there on the high ground. Rashao now underneath the Renegade side of things. A split fight from the Renegades. Spacestation Gaming ended on the point.
That commander's grab was just pure suicide coming out from Hero. He had no one on his side to burst the character. He had no map positioning to kill the character, and he also had given them full control over right side. They had 3 people in there ready to burst him as soon as he used it. How do they kill a barrack with nobody looking when you have 3 characters looking at you? That's something people don't realize, that the one weakness to the commander's grab is that you are just as susceptible to damage as the person that you are holding.
That's right. Everyone from SSG kind of turned and said, all right, we'll help our buddy out, and once they got rid of Hero, everything just sort of fell out of control there for the Renegades. So now down 3-2, Renegades have to defend here if they want to keep this game alive. Moonchopper's going to use the Assert Dominance, grab himself a kill onto Ares, so things looking bright at the moment for the Renegades. But how much ground can you make up? You saw Spacestation Gaming on their defense earlier in the game, fully back on the Renegade side of the map. How aggressive do you get now? Do you kind of draw the line on their high ground if you're the Renegades, or are you okay with them positioning right here?
I think they need to push aggressively here. If you've just used your Assert Dominance, the big issue is going to be if they get a nice push now, and they get the same situation as last round, and you no longer have that Assert Dominance up, which is he's very unlikely to have it back up now anytime soon. If they get to that same position, you don't have that Assert Dominance to defend, I think this gets pushed through for the 4-2. That's
true. That's a lot of space control. It's up to about a quarter of the way there, so depending on how long it takes, it might be up right when overtime is starting off.
It's good enough to have it back for the next point fight,
right?
But there might not be a next point fight if this push goes anywhere the same as it was last round.
That's true. You're going to have to use it if you have it, if it's about to go in. And a little bit of positioning, maybe woes from the Renegades. Shadow dashes on through, but enough damage from Rashao. Snags him the double kill here. Moonchopper not able to stay alive through that. 3 kills for the Barrack, and this is what you were a little bit afraid of. These kills now starting to fall for the Renegades, and Vocal seemingly will drop here pretty soon. He is nonetheless in behind SSG. He's able to slide back, get the kill. That's a big trade for Invocal to stay alive and at least snag something for his team. So it looked dire for a moment, extended out by the Renegades, and the payload hasn't moved much.
Invocal just saved them so hard. This is precisely what I was talking about. Had they had this fight at their high ground, by the time the respawns had come through, they'd still have a couple choke points left. If Invocal had not saved them there, this part would have literally been at the next choke point, and they would have been in a lot of trouble without the ults they needed to defend.
15 seconds left. It still could get there. Ares dodge rolls through. He was very low. No follow-up damage from the Renegades, though. Hero battle shout buys him some time. A little bit of healing as well. Look how fast those shields are melting. Has to play around that cooldown. Now Invocal this time caught out a little bit by Freeze God. So Renegades without some of that long-range damage confirmed, trying to fight through this overtime. SSG, remember, they could win the game here. They will feel free to use a lot of these ultimates in Flame. The first one used, Hexafire, follows up as well. Overpower connects, but Hero dies one more time. Assert Dominance up, down for Moonchopper. Has to use it this time, but they're down one of their point tanks. The moment that time's out, Moonchopper is in a bad spot up against SSG. Freeze God flies through. Ares finds the kill. Overtime is on here. And now one more kill. Both damage dealers down. Make it one more point tank as well. Renegades in shambles. SSG looking great. This one likely to go in as Viral's going to go down. A double kill for Midtown seals it, and SSG, they win game 2. Oh, no.
It's not looking good for the boys of Renegades now.
Because now, again, this is when you look at the difference between best of 5 and best of 7. You still have, kind of one more game to play with before you're really backs against the wall if you're the Renegades. In a best of 5, you're down 2. You have to win 3 straight, something you haven't even been able to do once in this set so far. It's these small moments. It's what we've seen out of the Renegades, kind of all split, where there are these moments where they look good, and Vocal kind of saves that push there for a moment, but then the second chance just kind of starts to fall apart. The ultimate's used well by SSG, and it goes in. It
feels like they're almost a little bit worried to push with the aggressiveness that they actually need to use.
Sure.
So if they, as I keep saying, if they were pushing out a little bit more aggressively, that just gives them that, if they're still going to die, if you're going to lose the point fight, or you're going to lose the fight, if you push them out a little bit further back, they still have to make that grounds up. That's time for you to respawn, to get back to the point before you get to these really important choke points, and not having to put you in a position where you have to expend ults in not really great ways, but the rest of your team is dead, just to have that slither of chance. It's
Yeah,
not
it
working
seems
out
like
for them.
they were fighting more on SSG's terms towards the end of that game, trying to play defensively instead of dictating kind of where they wanted to fight. SSG, they're going to be happy with that. 1 win away from moving on to the quarterfinals. See if they can do it right after this break.
Well, SSG are able to do it one more time. Renegades on the brink of being knocked down to the losers bracket. Not out of quarterfinals, but it would confirm SSG as going forward to Saturday to face one of their other mini opponents they faced throughout the phase here, Kresnik. And that one, you can cut it in a lot of different ways. There were a lot of good things, and Renegades even started off this map pretty well. But then Freeze God and Sadak decided, no.
It's just this didn't have a proper counter to the Ruckus, I think.
Yeah.
Ruckus is pretty good into Leon. Leon is good against Eevee, but when you're getting constantly walked at and pressured by Sadak, enabling Freeze God to top damage on Eevee, the only 6-digit damager in the game, that's impressive, especially on a character as inconsistent as Eevee. But Sadak was able to shut down Invocal, not really let him stop Freeze as much as he would have. 12-3 for Sadak, 16-4. A collective 28-7 between the two of them.
Good fast match.
Just running a line all over Renegades.
And just being able to come through. And that, I think this is the biggest thing. You know, you look at this Eevee, and she has a couple of, I mean, and Vocal in Leon is set up to kind of counter an Eevee. That's one of the things Leon does really well. But when you have to spend everything focused on this guy instead, it lets Freeze God go off on the side. And because of that, it kind of showcases one of the things everyone has always said about SSG, and that is that their off-tank flank duo is the scariest one in Paladins.
When they're on fire, it's so hard to stop them. I mean, they're in sync too, and they're the most vocal members of the team. Both of them, at least in terms of strategy. Rashao makes focus calls sometimes, but in terms of strategy, what they want to do, it is Freeze and Sadak really kind of commanding everybody most of the time. So when they get to work together, that you know they're going to be in sync, you know they're going to be on the same page, and you know that they're going to be unstoppable.
Well, Sadak, and an interesting turn of events. Granted, this is over 5 games.
Yeah.
I will kind of put that caveat on there. But total, 46, 22, and 86 for just this event. 4.0 KDA running for him, so not looking too shabby as he keeps things going for them. And now, I mean, with more drive, I think, than anything, they are 1 game away from being able to push themselves forward. I imagine if you're SSG, there's a specific opponent on Saturday that you have in mind as well. Like, you're thinking, what seed do we really want to try and figure our way into? But at this point, your mind is just on, let's make it there. And Renegades have 1 chance, 1 map right now to try and turn things around.
And I think this is just showing that Qualifier SSG is pretty terrifying. Think about last time. I think they only lost to Fnatic, and even then they took it to the very brink last year against them. We're going to go to Serpent Beach, is where Renegades wants to kind of reset and slow this down. Another SSG highlight map, too. So I don't know about this pick for Renegades. Maybe they just feel more comfortable on this. I think this is good for them, considering they got Ice Mines banned, so maybe Renegades just don't really know where to go. SSG kind of picked out their best maps. Renegades are just going to the dregs from there.
That honestly might be what it is the best map for Renegades that I think they have that does not overlap with anything SSG can play is Ice Mines. And with no Ice Mines available, yes, you might have some great maps, but I think every other map they have that is in that category, well, SSG are just as good, if not, well, at this point, showcasing that they're better on them coming forward with it.
Doesn't kill me.
I'm surprised they didn't go to Frozen or something. Frozen wasn't banned.
Yeah, and it honestly doesn't scream. I mean, it doesn't
it's not
scream
really
either
a strong
team,
SSG.
but yeah,
No, it screams
better for
Renegades to me. Remember, Phase 1, they beat NIP on it when they were at the worst they've ever been. So I'm surprised they didn't want to go somewhere like that, but maybe they just don't want to play on these wide maps to enable the backlines to do super well. Either way, we can think about this all day, but for now, we are in the draft. Same exact bans as the last map.
Yep.
Khan first pick for Renegades. We're assuming for Moonchopper, unless they want to do that double off-tank strategy again. SSG picking up Barrack and Maeve. Maeve super mobile on a map that has so much verticality that you need. Having that, I think, is really, really good. Also, I think it's a mechanical thing, right? If your Maeve is mechanically better than the enemy Eevee, you just win. You just win those 1v1s.
I mean, there's also some world where Ares plays Maves and Freeze God goes Eevee anyway, and they just double flank it. There's definitely some line somewhere where that could happen. But the thing that catches me out more than anything, and this is me going off the deep end now because I need something to talk about other than SSG being excellent at the champions they're picking up. This has actually been a map where Buck has been picked up a lot more recently. Is that something Renegades could look at?
Next time you see my
I think so, but Buck isn't really like a hyper carry champion. Buck is the pick that you give to a team that is hyper carried by their direct damage, right?
Okay.
So if you look at a team like Envy, I think when you think of the highlight DPS, you think of Rock, right, over Random. Random has great performances, don't get me wrong, but you're definitely looking more towards Rock, so you give Random the Buck, he can be self-sufficient, he can do what he wants, and you can put resources into the person that you think will have the most influence on the game. Same with Nip, right? Tenor and Alex, both great players. You're giving Buck to Alex, and you're letting Tenor do Tenor things, which is kind of what's gotten Nip to the point that they're at now. So maybe, but I think you would rather, Shadow and Invocal both have that crazy level of performance. I think you'd rather give them a hyper carry like Eevee, but they want to go with the double backline instead. To me, that screams that they want to deal with the flanker. They want to deal with what could be Ares or FRZ more than anything.
Yeah, that's actually one of the best things I think about SSG, and this is one of the things I love about NIP as well. Sometimes you just don't know who's going to play what.
Yeah.
And when you see Maeve Leon, in every other instance of most teams, you go, this is who's playing Leon, this is who's playing Maeve. Both of them perform ridiculously well on both of those champions. I actually think I prefer Ares' Maeve over his Leon, and it feels almost dirty to say this, but Freeze God's Leon over his Maeve. But when they both play them at around the same level anyway, it's just kind of like picking and choosing.
I think you just want to see Ares Maeve, because how long have we been seeing Ares Maeve? 2017?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been quite a while that we've had it up on the board. But Renegades quietly kind of ended up with a great draft. Shadows had great performances on Cassie. We're assuming that it's going to be Invocal on Victor.
Yep.
I don't think we want it any other way. And they don't have double off-tank. They have that point congestion. Fury has been good for Renegades, so I don't think they have a bad draft. But I think SSG's draft is just a little bit better for Serpent Beach.
I think there's going to be a lot to deal with this Ruckus, though, so maybe Sadak won't be the one leading the way for them. We'll have to maybe lean more on that Maeve to open the door. And right now, I mean, SSG could be going forward. That's all there is to it. Let's jump down to Dave and Bees and kick this one off.
That's right. SSG grabbed themselves a 2-0 lead over the Renegades. Renegades, they got to do the winning thing 3 times in a row. They're not out of it entirely if they lose here. They'll move on to the losers bracket later in the day, but SSG could stamp their ticket to the quarterfinals with a big win here. They're sticking with similar drafts, SSG are, in that they seemingly love that Barrack on the front line and Sadak on the Ruckus. You know, it's a champion I think that's been hit or miss for some teams, but it's working for SSG today.
Yeah, SSG have always been pretty good at making the Ruckus work, and they just seem to be going for more and more aggression.
Yeah.
They're saying, well, we know that if we just run it down mid at Renegades, we're going to be able to just do enough mechanically that there's nothing they can do to rebuttal us. And so far it's working, so I can't blame them for keep doing the same thing.
Do you like Renegades going Cassie and Victor here with the, I wouldn't say lack of flank, but, you know, to put it kindly, there's not too much mobility in that.
No, I kind of do, though, to be honest. Like, as we said in the last round, it seemed like they weren't being too aggressive. They were kind of trying to hold back a little bit and allow space to push into them. So if you have these 2 champions that if you have to push into, do a lot of damage, then that could be the playstyle that they need to kind of end up getting the win.
Yeah, and Invocal on this Victor, definitely potent. Shadow on the Cassie is as well, but unfortunately he's not going to be for 8 more seconds as he's first blood in this game. Spacestation have put themselves on the point as well, and they have a one-man advantage for a few more seconds. Nice daggers from Freeze God. He's flanked around the Victor and the Cassie now. He has 2 kills. The 2 damage dealers for Renegades each have a death apiece. 78% is where SSG stand. The flank from Ares is on. Viral goes down. 96% in climbing. Renegades, they're going to have to figure out a defense here to avoid going down 2-0.
Prior to that kill onto Viral, I would have said they had a slight chance of maybe being able to come back in, still contesting the point. As soon as Viral dropped there, their chances were basically zero. There was nothing they were going to be able to do without healer in that circumstance. But yeah, the Maeve is getting just too much value. With these 2 characters in the Lian and the Victor, sorry, the Cassie and the Victor, that Maeve should be getting burst as soon as she pulls in. She shouldn't be getting away with the amount of freedom that she is.
0 deaths across the board for everyone on SSG. It's been all red all day in the kill feed. This is a spot where, you know, Freeze God has some mobility, some up-down potential with that verticality, but if you're in Vocal, if you're Shadow here, this is where you should feel comfortable on those kind of direct damage high ground champions, but a Midnight is going to move Ares into a spot where able to get the kill on a Moonchopper, and Freeze God has kind of retaken that high ground now, and Vocal has had to drop all the way back to kind of the statue side under this archway here, back in the back of base. Ares gets another one as well onto Shadow, so Payload's still moving forward here, and Enlightenment could seal up a kill if they need it. Barrage used just to try to soften up some of this offense, but SSG, they will not be denied right now. Finally, first kill of the game for Renegades, but here comes a Hexafire down onto the point, ripping through Hero. The healing is not enough to keep him alive. Contested down on the payload, at least for the moment, but Moonchopper has the commander's grab. No battle shout to keep him alive. Spacestation Gaming back off, but 2 front lines down for Renegades. Things looking dire here at the moment. Nobody in range to contest. You might have to rely on Invocal one more time.
The fact that like everything that Spacestation is doing seems to be so perfectly timed to just use it when there's nothing that Renegades can do about it. We're seeing the Midnights coming through before Cassie has ultimate. We're seeing the Dome Shield into Ruckus ulti when the wall is gone for Inara. Everything is used so perfectly timed to just absolutely take everything away from Renegades while they have nothing available. Phenomenal plays.
And the damage discrepancy is pretty obvious there. Invocal's at the top, but then the next 4 are all for SSG, leaving the frontliners and the Cassie down beneath, just above Viral there. So 20 seconds left. It looked like what could be a good push for SSG. They killed off both of the frontliners, but too much of that confirmable damage from Invocal, I think, to keep them from pushing it in. Ares finds the kill onto Invocal, though, so now you're going to have to move a little bit further forward if you're the Renegades. Might have to drop down. Dodge roll left and right from Shadow, not enough to keep him alive, so this time no more damage from the Renegades. And like dominoes, they're falling. Moonchopper is going to drop as well. This payload's going to go in, and SSG, clinical, on their way to a 2-0 lead.
I think they certainly recognize Invocal being their main issue here for getting the push in. Even when they had nothing left available, Invocal was still there, able to get enough kills to keep them held in. And they just went straight for him. And when he was gone as well, it just allowed the Maeve to just be in the backline, bullying Viral. And the tanks can't go back to help, because if you go back to help, you're not contesting anymore.
It's sort of a masterclass in kind of forcing Renegades to try to juggle one way or the other. You know, while the frontliners kind of bullied this one in for SSG. Actually, they had to drop off on that one. But the mobility that Freeze God has brought, 304 for him, 506. Mitau Undying as well. It seems like SSG can do no wrong here in this game. If nothing else, Renegades have 4 ultimates that they can use to try to help them out in this mid. Mitau tosses out the through time and space, but to no avail. You need to change something up if you're the Renegades, because they got mopped there on that defense, and the mid fight didn't look much better.
I think they have time here. With the comeback mechanic they've got, I think they should just play it a little bit safer, try and get at least 1 pick, and then use the comeback mechanic to your advantage. Maybe try and focus on the barrack, clear the barrack off the point, and then they have to use the Ruckus to contest against you, or you just get free cap for a long time. But they're just giving them so much capture time without doing anything. They're just walking around the map, hoping a target appears for them. But Spacestation is smart enough not to give you a target for no reason.
It's been another example of fast cap, but 0% for the Renegades. They're able to get a kill onto Sadak. The overpower paid off for them there. Spacestation dropped down the Dome Shield with Rochelle. They're at 99%. Overtime begins. Hero is going to drop down, push back Spacestation Gaming. So they're at least going to get a little bit of percentage here. Renegades, a couple ultimates, but SSG, Hexafire, Midnight, and Enlightenment could end up paying off for them.
That burst there onto the Victor was just phenomenal. There's the moment Ares peeked that corner. Victor was literally 1 HP within a second. He was very fortunate to get away there with his life, but it's turned the reversal now. And now Ares is the one looking very, very low. They can put their attention towards the point now. Will Barak have enough here to live? Oh, no. He seems to be living somehow.
Yeah.
The rocket boot's saving him a little bit there. Shielding coming through, and they don't manage to get the kill.
Oh!
Quadra kill from Sadhat coming through.
Unbelievable. What a play from Sadak. The frontliners just melted for the Renegades, and the perfect dive timing there from the Ruckus helped seal up that mid-fight. In another example of maybe why Space Station have been valuing this Ruckus, Sadak is so good on that champion.
Yeah, Sadak has always been a front runner for the Ruckus. Even when Ruckus wasn't being used so much, Sadak was always somebody who was able to pick it up and use it. It's a really high standard of play. And it just seems like everything the Renegades are doing, they just falter just by that tiny amount and give Space Station just a little bit too much pressure onto them. And they're just taking every inch of pressure and running a mile with it.
Space Station Gaming only need to run maybe a quarter mile here to get this one pushed in. Through time and space from Mitau could maybe be the difference maker. Shadow knows he's down around that corner. Gonna hit the blast shot, but just a little splash damage there. Renegades are gonna use the Inflame to buy them an advantage here, see if they can get Space Station pushed back just a little bit extra. Freeze God does fall, so this is a good looking start to the defense from the Renegades. Traded out by Ares, but a 2-for-1 trade, and now's the question again of how far forward do the Renegades get?
It almost looked like they used the in-flame retreat to trap Renegades there. They said, we're going to allow you to think we're retreating, and then as soon as you turn the corner, we're actually just going to swarm you. And we've seen this come through. Renegades push one person out down the lower end there, and the Space Station guys are just waiting there for them to just burst them as soon as they turn the corner.
Yeah, the positioning there, maybe some mind games from SSG. They're right back in it. I mean, the Inflame grabbed you 2 kills and maybe 20 seconds of clock time on the defense, but SSG have not been moved back at all. Barrage from Invocal has been canceled out, I think, at 2 charges a couple of times this game. Hasn't been all that effective, maybe getting some poke damage, but I haven't seen many Barrage kills come out. That's a big thing. That's a big ultimate for the Renegades that they'll need to start hitting just a little bit more with how off cooldown it can be, how fast you can charge that. Seismic Crash used by Hero, but he's so low. Dome Shield used as well. Rashao, big double kill. This could be the game-ending fight, the set-ending fight for SSG, and it will be a big 3-0, and SSG, they punched their ticket to the quarterfinals.
You wonder how in the position that they had that they weren't just bursting out the Barrack. The Barrack just sits there on point continuously, whilst the remainder of Space Station Gaming stays on the low ground, hiding behind a wall. There is literally one target in front of you, and he's not being attacked. I just don't understand why he's not being forcefully pushed out from the point. He only has Genos heals as well. It's not a significantly high amount of heal output to keep a tank alive in the face of a Cassie and a Victor.
This is a big gut check now for the Renegades. It's a auto-qualified to quarterfinals with a win here. They're still not out of it yet. We're going to face the Hype Unit minor league team after our second kind of matchup of the day here. So still a chance for the Renegades to move on to the quarterfinals, but changes need to be made. The Hype Unit minor league team is not a team that you can take for granted. It's a team that will bring the game to you much the same as SSG.
Most certainly. We've seen them versus All Business yesterday. They looked phenomenal in the way they played.
True.
They're taking down a high-end minor league team, albeit with 2 subs. So I would say Renegades definitely have a good chance to pull through on that one and to gain the win, but I'm not sure how it's going to end up turning for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, they go to 5 against All Business on day 1, and I think, Gore and I were chatting about it on cast, and it's like, I mean, yeah, it's a win for the Renegades, but, as a PPL team, albeit the lowest seeded PPL team, those are the matchups you need to win pretty convincingly. A couple subs in there. I mean, All Business, though, to be fair, their subs, I think, played very, very well this week. Renegades, they dropped down to the losers bracket. One more chance at the quarterfinals for them. SSG with the big 3-0 win. They stamped their tickets. Let's go back to the desk.
Their tickets they shall. They're going to be moving forward, and that, I think, is the biggest thing. Again, tomorrow they have up to, I believe, minimum 2 games, no matter what, that you are going to play for, I think, everybody involved except for maybe the lowest losers team coming in. The team that gets fourth will only play 1 game, but everybody else is going to be playing 2. And that's the interesting thing, I think, coming into it, is tomorrow's seeding is going to be very important. Because if you think about it, you're choosing between Na'Vi, NIP, VP, and Envy.
Yeah.
You don't really have a good choice in those 4. No matter what, it's going to be a hard one. But they've solidified, yes, we are going. And admittedly, staying up in the top bracket right now means, yes, we are going, and we are going to go in a pretty solid spot. I believe the worst you can do from up there is 3rd now. So keeping yourself afloat, alive, maybe happy going forward, because you can knock off, I believe, Envy of your list Na'Vi off your list of enemies that you might have to go up against on Saturday. Renegades here. Rough, kind of from the top down. I mean, Invocal does really well in damage, doesn't do really well in slash line. They're going to go up against Hype Unit after this, but I don't think you can look at anyone other than Sadak.
Yeah, even after highlighting him last game, I think we still have to take a look at what he brought to the table for them. Even having to go Bulldozer to shoot down the Inara walls, they had just that much of a credit advantage over them. He was able to get away with so much on this Ruckus. Even into counters, even into the Cassie, the Victor, he was still able to always be in the right place, perfectly positioned Hexafire. That's not easy to do. I would say Hexafire is probably one of the harder ultimates to get value of at a professional level, because it's basically saying, I'm doing a lot of damage, but I can't move. These people know how to position. They know how to get away. Sadak fully aced the team there, by the way. It only says Quadra, but he led in with that first kill on Hero. Sadak just wipes the entirety of Renegades as Ruckus, and I don't think that's too surprising considering how he's been looking on Ruckus in general.
Just Sadak things, right?
Just
It's
Sadak
just
things.
something that he normally does casually. Who cares?
Have you guys seen
Either
that
way,
picture?
he comes through. His Ruckus has been one of the ones. It always is funny to me when I think back. We did the play with a pro with Rubu for that
Yes.
one, and it's that moment of just like there's like 3 choices that I think you could slot in for it. Add Phoenix onto the list. But really, there's a contest between Rubu and Sadak for which one really is the better Ruckus. I want to see one of them determine that. Maybe that can be the next King of the Ring is 1v1 Ruckus, Rubu, and Sadak.
Infinite cooldowns, aerial assault, Dragon Ball Z back and forth. That's what I want to
Dashing
see.
all the way around.
Oh my god, imagine?
That'd be pretty fun to watch. But hey, doesn't matter what they do then. What matters is what they did today. And that is stamp themselves 1 ticket to the quarterfinals. Tomorrow they'll figure out where. But as of right now, I'm sure they're feeling happy knowing that they're going to be going.
I'm sure they are feeling happy down here with Sadak and Ares. And, kind of moving through this tournament, we talked with you guys. I know the confidence has been there. But at the end of the day, you have to play through this tournament to go to the quarterfinals. But now with a win here, you are officially in the quarterfinals. Still some seeding left to determine tomorrow. Is it a weight off your shoulders that you grab a couple of wins here this week, no matter what, you're playing in the knockout round on Saturday?
I would say. I think we needed to get this victory, like, no matter what. I just said, like, when we played, we are going to qualify 100%, and we're really confident for this moment. We played really, really well today. And right now, we just need to focus on the first seed because we still have some tournament to go on. So we're going to play, like, out of our minds tomorrow.
Yeah, so that's kind of the follow-up question. How important is the different seeding to you guys now? I mean, I assume not all of the pressure is gone. There's still some important matches ahead, as you pointed out. The top 4 teams waiting in the quarterfinals are very strong. Is this a case of just if you can get the top seed, that's where you're most confident?
I mean, if we are going to win Worlds, we're going to have to beat everyone, so it doesn't really matter.
So going into your matches maybe later this week, is it just fine-tuning maybe some things that you saw earlier in the week that you weren't happy with, maybe keep some strategies hidden away?
Yeah, for sure. We try to get as much strategies as we could on this show today, of course. But yeah, we also tune a couple more.
I think the Ruckus for you has been, or was today, a very, I think, strong pick across all of the games. Do you kind of see him, maybe it's different because you're so good at Ruckus specifically. Do you see him a little bit higher on the off-tank tier list?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he's situational because every time they will have like Khan and Ashen, okay? I have Ruckus. That's all, basically.
And seemingly every time you had Ruckus, it looked good. Congratulations, guys. Officially in the quarterfinals. Still some matches to play for better seeding, but nonetheless, you will be playing on Saturday. So congrats to you. Everyone at home, make sure to stick around. We got another potential quarterfinalist right after this.